And good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for joining us for this webinar today, which, as Dan has just outlined, will cover the outcomes of the third meeting of the Expert Working Group on Environmentally Sound Management. Just a quick look at what will be covered in the presentation today. First, I'll go back and just remind everyone of where the mandate and what the mandate is for the Expert Working Group, so where it came from and what it is. Next, we'll take a quick look at the framework for the environmentally sound management of hazardous and other wastes. And then I will go through the three meetings of the group that have been held since the last COP. And then we'll take a quick look ahead to the next COP, which is coming up in May, and finally there'll be an opportunity for questions and answers. So in terms of the mandate of the group, at COP 11, which was back in 2013, the COP adopted a decision on the country-led initiative, an initiative basically designed to improve effectiveness of the Basel Convention. And to do this, the COP deemed that actions should be taken with respect to the ban amendment, so action should be taken to facilitate its entry into force. The second part of the CLI decision is what we're concerned with today on guidelines for environmentally sound management. And finally, that there should be more, there was further legal clarity required for certain terminology in the convention. So as I mentioned, today we focus on the second section of that decision, which is on environmentally sound management. So at COP 11, this expert working group was mandated to look at short-term activities that could implement or demonstrate environmentally sound management, and to also develop a work program for the longer term. So this would really be for consideration by the Conference of the Parties at its 12th meeting this May, and then the work program will be implemented following that. The group consisted of 25 experts and representing all of the UN regions. So just going back quickly to prior to COP 11, the framework for the environmentally sound management on hazardous waste and other waste was developed. And as the slide suggests, this was adopted at COP 11. And this is really the central point of the work of the expert working group, because the framework was really the first step taken by the group in order to provide a bit more practical information as to how to implement ESM on the ground. And then the actions that group is now taking really are to help implement not only the ESM framework, but also ESM in general. So the framework itself, as I said, it's quite a practical document. It gives this common understanding of what are the key elements of ESM, and it also goes through some different tools and strategies that a variety of stakeholders can use to ensure ESM. So in terms of the meetings of the expert working group, well, 3 meetings have taken place in the past biennium. I'll go through the first 2 quite quickly because looking at the outcomes of the third meeting, I'll really summarize all of the group's work to date. But the first meeting took place at the end of 2013 in Argentina, and it was at this time that the group really decided what would be the short-term actions that they would focus on, and they had a go at drafting a first draft of their work program. Now, work continued intersessionally, and at the second meeting, the group met in Indonesia in May last year and had an opportunity to review review progress made, and basically to continue working. The third meeting, which we're here to discuss today, was just held in January in Constance, Germany. Now, this was a very important meeting because not only did the group have to, well, try and finalise many of its short-term work items, the actions that it's been taking the past biennium, but also they had to finalise a work program to be submitted for consideration by COP, and also a report of their activities, which also was submitted to COP, will be submitted to COP. So now I'll go through each of the outcomes of this meeting. When I say the slide suggests EWG3, but as I just said, it's really a culmination of the work over the 3 meetings that I'm going to describe to you now. The way the slides are developed, there's quite a bit of information for participants to refer back after the webinar. But just to explain, the first part of the slide in the black print basically shows the mandate of the group, and then below is how the group decided to act on this mandate. So in terms of its first activities, well, they have a very general mandate from Decision BC 11.1 to implement environmentally sound management. What the group has done in this regard is to develop and implement pilot projects over the past, well, certainly past year. Now, there are 3 projects that have nearly been finalised, and these are listed on the first slide here, involving different countries and different regions, and also thanks to the different donors, Switzerland, Norway, and Japan. Those projects and the outcomes of those projects were actually presented to the last meeting of the group. And also information will be given to the Conference of the Parties at its 12th meeting. In terms of the third meeting, a further 2 pilot projects. Sorry, just having a technical problem. Okay. There we are, sorry. A further 2 pilot projects were agreed for implementation, the first of which is on insurance bond and guarantees, and the second on ESM of ULAB in the Asian region. And both of these projects will be funded by Switzerland and will commence within the next couple of months. Again, there will be a report of this going to COP12. So in terms of the next set of activities, similar to the last slide, at the top of that slide you have the mandate of the group. So the group was requested to not only collect available information on national and other ESM standards, but they were also requested to develop generic guidance on how to establish ESM. So from that mandate, the group decided at its first meeting to develop a set of 6 practical manuals on policies and legislation, licensing and permitting, certification, prevention, and also another manual on insurance and liability, and then a terminology manual that would basically pull together all of the terms used throughout those practical manuals. And I should mention that certainly in terms of the development of the terminology manual, it was deemed very important that there would be no duplication with the glossary that's being developed by the Legal Clarity group. And if you recall, that's the third part of this CLI decision. So at the third meeting, the group finalised the drafts of these manuals, which will be submitted to COP. The one manual they weren't able to finalise is on insurance and liability, and actually a consultant will be retained over the coming months to finalise that. So the third set of activities, again, the mandate for the group is listed there. So it really points to developing some sort of guidance on particular waste streams. So given this mandate, the group decided to develop fact sheets on certain priority waste streams, and I've listed the waste streams at the bottom of that slide that are being considered. And a consultant was actually retained to undertake this work. It's really more of a bringing together information in a very practical way that can be used by the different stakeholders. So it's not necessarily new information, it is just a different presentation of existing information. These will also be submitted to COP. Next, the COP had asked the expert working group to assess training and information material on ESM, and in this regard, the group asked a consultant to look at the different training materials and information that's out there, and that consultant did, and they pulled together a report which is available on the convention website. The recommendations coming from this report have actually been factored into the work program, which we will come to shortly. Next, the COP saw that it's very important to ensure engagement of the private sector in implementing ESM, and that there is obviously great importance to them investing in ESM. A report on private sector incentives has been worked on over the past 6 months, and that has now been finalised and will be made available to the COP as well. Unfortunately, the expert working group didn't have time to consider any actions in addition to the development of that report. So the next item is actually on the work program. So what we've discussed up until now are the short-term actions that the group undertook. Now, looking ahead to COP12 and beyond, the group was asked to develop a work program. And in doing so, the COP11 gave 4 priorities as listed on the slide. So really looking at consistent interpretation of ESM, this idea of developing strategies, legislation, and again, the all-important involvement of the private sector. So the group has developed this work program over the past 3 meetings. And just to give a bit of a snapshot, this is being submitted to COP12 as well and will be available prior to the meeting. But just to give an idea, well, certainly the work program has a set of objectives which are very straightforward, so supporting the objectives of the ESM framework. The group decided the best way to encourage implementation of ESM would be to develop a toolkit. So if you look at the bottom half of the slide, you've got the different areas of the toolkit that they have identified, some of which they're already working on. For example, the manuals and fact sheets are already really finalized, pending COP approval. But for all of those different areas in the work program, there are also suggested activities that could be undertaken not only by the group, but by other stakeholders. The group also, of course, saw the need for this to be an iterative process, and that evaluation of this toolkit would have to be ongoing as well. So coming to the preparations for the next COP, which is in May in Geneva, there's quite a lot of work that the group is submitting for COP's consideration. I've just put the document references there, so you will have a record of those. The documents will be available within the next month, from my understanding, but So what you've got is a general overview document on the CLI process, so that will not only address ESM, but also the ban amendment and legal clarity. Then specifically on ESM, well, there'll be the report and draft work program of the expert working group in one document, the practical manuals that I just described earlier will be included in another document, and these will actually all be translated into the UN languages. And then finally, there's the fact sheets and the private sector report that will just be submitted in English only as an INF document. So that is essentially a quick summary of the group of the work of the group. It's been a very productive biennium for this group, so I probably haven't done the work justice in my quick description, but certainly I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have at this point. Thank you.